Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a cold email campaign that books 20 plus sales calls weekly. And this is going to be a full guide, step-by-step walkthrough basically. So who's this for? This is for B2Bs that are basically struggling to grow or just want more sales calls on their calendar on autopilot. This whole system is going to be relatively automated. I'm going to walk you through step by step. So first things first, who are we and what do we do? So here's just some results from some of the campaigns that we've run recently or in the past for different clients. You can kind of see here reply rates, opportunities. Opportunities is basically anyone that has expressed interest that we've then gone and booked into a sales call. You can also see here some of the actual meetings that we've set up for us and for different clients as well. We're also Clay experts too. So yeah, just a little bit of that just to show you that what we're talking about here basically. So there are 4 core components to booking more meetings. The first one is deliverability. Your prospects actually see your emails. Obviously, there's no point in sending these emails out and having the best offer in the world if no one is seeing your emails at all. Each of these are equally as important to each other. You cannot have one without the other. The second bit is lead list / targeting. So this is so that the right prospects actually get your emails at the right time, and that's a really important component of it. The third thing is the messaging / offer. So this is that the right prospects get your value proposition and see why your solution is best. So here is you putting your offer in front of the right people so that they can become interested in what you are selling and what your services are or your product. And then the fourth one is conversions. Now this is less talked about, I would say, but it's just equally as important. There is no point in generating all of these leads if none of them are going to book into an actual call itself. So I'm going to walk you through that whole step-by-step process, how we do it internally, how we do it for clients as well. So conversions, like I said, just taking their responses and booking them into actual meetings so that you can then close more deals. So our goal with emails is to get a hand raise. So this is just someone saying that I am interested in some aspect. This could be a pricing inquiry. This could be someone directly asking, yes, let's do a call, asking for more information, etc., etc. We then take that prospect and we want to convert them into a booked call afterwards, right? So the first aspect, let's break it all down. So deliverability. Right now, it is definitely harder than ever to inbox. A lot of people are seeing really low response rates. So sub 1%, for example, where their inboxes are just not placing at all. And it's particularly difficult for Microsoft. I'm going to walk you through here the deliverability aspects where I'm basically going to show you our process, what we do for ourselves as well as our clients, so that you can basically get the best possible setup so that you tick this section of this fundamental. And also one thing to note as well, if you guys are interested in us building these kinds of systems out for you guys, and you've tried this, it's not quite working, or you want to scale it up even more, then this is perfect for us to come in to be able to help you out. So if you're interested in that, we can build this entire thing out for you, manage it, etc. We do it on a performance basis as well. Feel free to book in a call below. So here we go with the deliverability aspect. So we want to follow the basics. So the basics are essentially that we don't want to send too much volume and we don't want to cause any issues where we burn the domains and things like that. That naturally may happen over time, but we want to lengthen that cycle so that doesn't happen for a very, very long time, right? Now, with the technical setup, it goes beyond saying, things like set up your DNS settings. So you've got your DMARC, SPF, and DKIM. That usually is done on the back end with your technical setup. And I'm going to show you a couple of different resellers or a couple of different tools or providers that we use to actually do our setup. The really important aspect here is to have a diversified infrastructure. So this is where we'll have, for example, like we have Google, we have Outlook, and we have SMTP. SMTP is essentially just not Google Outlook, and it's a private infrastructure. In Google Outlook, you can either go directly to Google, directly to Outlook and buy inboxes there, or you can buy through resellers. We prefer to buy through resellers just because it's a lot cheaper over the long term. Just in general, it's a lot cheaper. It's about half the price. And as long as you go with good resellers, which again, I'll go through a couple of the resellers that we actually use. I'm not paid, I'm not sponsored. It's just literally these are the ones that we actually use inside our agency, and they just work and they work really well. So you want to make sure that you're only going for .com or .co domains. You can do .io, .ai, etc., but those are way more expensive. So just .com and .co usually work. .org is also okay, but usually just try and stick to these 3 inboxes per domain. So you don't want to have like one domain and have like 10 inboxes across that. You want to just have 3 inboxes per domain. There are some exceptions to that, and I'll run through what that looks like in a second with one of the providers. But in general, 3 inboxes per domain for a pretty general setup. 25 to 30 emails per inbox per day. Again, this depends on the provider that you're using, but as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to exceed 30 emails per day per inbox, basically. So if you want to understand how much volume you can send, you want to work backwards. So if, for example, you say, I want to send 1,000 emails a day, let's just say you need to do 1,000 divided by 30. So we have 33 inboxes, which means we then need 11 domains. So 3 inboxes per domain, 33 inboxes, and then those 33 will send 30 emails. That's going to be 1,000, right? What we always recommend, and what we actually do as well for our clients, is we set up 2 sets of inboxes. So batch 1 and batch 2. The reason why we do that is if we run into any issues whatsoever, which can happen and does happen more often than not, we then can basically switch them out. So we'll set up, so if we want to send 1,000, we actually set up double. So to be able to send 2,000, half of them go on a, what we call a subs bench or warm-up bench, basically, where they just stay on the warm-up. And then the other half, they go into the campaigns. We run them for a few weeks or maybe a month. And then after a month, we switch them over to the second batch so that the first batch can go back on warm up. And then we basically do that rotation, which helps keep them and last a lot longer. And then also just in general improves the deliverability over the long term as well. If you want to scale horizontally. So what I mean by that is instead of sending, say, you want to now scale your volume and you want to do 1,500 emails a day or 2,000 emails a day, instead of sending 35, 40, 50 emails per inbox, you would just set up more domains, and then under those domains, more inboxes. So again, you want to always stick to 3 inboxes per domain, and you want to set it up horizontally. So you're not adding more volume per inboxes that you currently have. You want to scale horizontally, basically. You want to just add more domains, more inboxes, and then keep to those sending like sort of invitations, basically. Trust me, over the long term, you want to just stick to that. Otherwise, it's going to become a pain in the ass, and you're going to have to consistently keep buying inboxes and stuff. And then you're going to complain that like you haven't got an ROI, you can't get it to work, etc., etc. Just stick to the rules of thumb, and they will generally help you out the most. This is not like brand new information or anything. You can find all this stuff if you go on Instantly Smartly. They have like guides and stuff. Like just follow the guides that they generally have, and you'll do pretty much hit like 90% of the deliverability aspect and put yourself in the best place possible to actually land into the inboxes. The other thing as well, which is also quite important, that's actually something that we started introducing a lot more recently, especially over the past couple of months, is we use premium warm-up services, especially for SMTP servers and for Outlook, right? So for the inboxes that we get under Microsoft Outlook and for SMTP, we actually add a premium warm-up. So the premium warm-up is called Warmy, so warmy.io. This basically, so our website. So this essentially allows us to build a slightly better reputation in the warm-up pool. Instead of being in a warm-up pool where, you know, you've got basically every other Instantly user, every other Smart Lead user, etc. if you're using those platforms, you can now basically be attached to a warm-up pool that has got much better quality because you actually have to pay money to get into that warm-up pool. You can like configure the settings and all sorts of different things. The only thing I will say is it's quite expensive. So I'm going to show you in just a second potential deals that you can get to lower the price, but it will help over the long term to have premium warm-up just because it mimics human behavior a lot better. It also allows you to just build a generally better reputation. Just for some very quick context on that, with regular warm-up, you are basically in a warm-up pool with every other Instantly or every other Smart Lead user. If people have bad inboxes or they're caught for spamming or they have like removed the inboxes, you have a higher likelihood of getting like bounce rates and things like that and basically just not emailing other good quality users. So therefore your reputation doesn't actually nothing really happens to it. Whereas if you go premium warm up, people that are there are obviously paying. So, you know, you're going to get a better quality breed of people, so to speak. And therefore it's going to translate into the infrastructure and deliverability that you actually have when you're starting to send emails. I recommend this specifically for SMTP and Outlook, like I mentioned. For Google, we found no difference so far. Google seems to be absolutely fine with just doing a regular warm-up. So I would just keep Google inboxes on regular warm-up via Instantly or Smart Lead, whichever you use. Other things here are to keep the bounce rate below 3% by validating your emails. So you can use different tools, services like Lead Magic, Million Verifier, all sorts of different ones, right? It's not the video for that specifically, but you can just make sure you use validation tools. And then 2 final things here before I run onto some of the providers that you could potentially use. What we use on our side is no links. So it's even in the signature, absolutely 0 links in the first email. You can send it in the second email, because you would have already inboxed. So links in the second email are okay. So as in a threaded reply, so a follow-up email. But in the first email, no links, not even in the signature. Be wary of things like people might add their email address in like the signature, or they might add address, a phone number, etc. Sometimes those can come up as hyperlinks. So you just want to be careful with that side of things. The only time that links are okay in an initial email is if you have a really old domain and you have a really good domain reputation, as in your domain has been something that you've used for a very, very, very long time. But I would not recommend that if you have sort of just set up email infrastructure, which most of you will be doing that. So when I say a domain for a very long time, for example, if I was to cold email someone from my main leadify.ai email address, and I just sent like one email manually with a link, like that's obviously fine. But to scale things up, you don't want to do that because you risk burning that domain. And then that's going to cause all sorts of issues. So just in general rule of thumb, no links, not even in the signature. And then no open rate tracking as well. Open rates literally don't show you anything. They're very inaccurate due to like pixels misfiring and things like that. The pixel that's in the actual email itself that shows or tells you, hey, this person has opened your email. They can sometimes misfire and they can cause all sorts of issues just around like bad deliverability or worsening your deliverability. A much better feedback is actual responses. So your response rate as well as also out of offices. If you're getting out of offices and you're getting responses, obviously you're landing in the inbox, right? That's a much better sort of like gauge essentially. So the providers that we use 3 different providers. SMTP provider that we use is Mission Inbox. I highly recommend them. Been using them now for a few months. You get them for $1.99 basically for 30 inboxes included, but they basically allow you to have a private infrastructure. Really, really cool guys that run it, and I would highly recommend. If you want to set up the premium warm-up, you can do so. Once you have an account, you can message their team on Slack and they'll be able to give you a warm-up for a fraction of the cost. I think we pay maybe about just under $4, I think, or something per inbox. Whereas if you go direct to Warmy, you're going to be ending up paying like a whole lot more. So yeah, that's generally how it works. They usually can get discounts if you do like bulk calls and things like that, but that's what I would recommend. It ends up working out about sort of $7 odd per inbox that you set up like this with this structure. And again, we'll usually, if we have 100 inboxes that we want to set up, we might set up like 30 or 40 under here, 30 or 40 under Google, 30 or 20 or 30 under Microsoft, for example. Second type is field mail. So they do a mixture of, so just to clarify, these guys only do SMTP. So they don't do any other type of inboxes. You have to buy your own domains and then bring them across, as in add them and then do the whole setup. Here, scaled mail. So they do a mixture of Outlook, Microsoft accounts and Google accounts. You can kind of select whether you want just Google, just Microsoft, or if you want like a mix of Google and Microsoft, and depending on the percentage. The way that theirs works is they actually have a lot of mailboxes per domain, but they have a really low sending volume. So they recommend sending 2 to 5 emails per domain. So you can see here, you only need 4 domains, but you get nearly 200 inboxes, but the volume is split across so many different inboxes. So that's kind of how it ends up actually working. There's also a similar service like Hypertide. I've heard quite a lot of things about them. So I think it's a relatively similar type of thing. I think the only difference is the setup structure. So that's what we use. And then you can also get an add-on afterwards, which is the premium warm-up. For me, they charge you basically per domain. You'll be able to get that at a fraction of the price than using directly from going to Warmy, for example. But yeah, so again, that also is really helpful. And that's kind of part of our backbone of how we do infrastructure. They've been really good and they help with the setup and everything. Same with Mission Inbox, they've been awesome. And then finally, premium inboxes. This is for Google inboxes. And so this is the kind of pricing that they have. So yeah, these ones, you don't need premium warm up. I would say just add them to Instantly's warm up pool and you should be absolutely fine. The thing to note is if you do have a premium warm up, you don't need to add it to like Instantly or Smart Leads warm up. You just connect the account to Instantly as you would normally, but you don't need to add it to the actual warm up because it's going to be warming up within Warmy, which is the premium warm up service. For the domains purchasing, we use Cloudflare. And then so here's where we purchase the domains and then we go and buy the inboxes, attach them associated with them domains, and then obviously do the whole technical setup, get them on warm up, etc., etc. Cool. So that is the first part, which is deliverability. So next we'll move on to the second part, which is the lead list building. I've done a lot of videos on the lead list building aspect within Clay. And so for this one, it's going to be a little bit shorter on that section than compared to deliverability. But number one, again, just want to focus on fundamentals. I get the right message in front of the right prospect. Obviously at the right time is, that's what's ideal. That's not going to be perfect though, because there's all sorts of different things that you're not necessarily going to know if it's going to be the ideal or perfect time, but we can get as much research as possible to understand that. We want to use good sources of data. So anything like Apollo, Clay, you can build lists within Clay as well as also use it for enrichments, SalesNav, Crunchbase, Store Leads, you name it, right? There's all sorts of different databases. My recommendation here would be to just try different databases and see what is working best for you, your prospects, and your cold email campaigns. Apollo, yes, it's overused, but it still has relatively good data, especially if you combine it with Clay and do a lot of research within Clay and to filter out basically the bad fit prospects. So what we'll usually do is build the data source, right, in one of those places. Then we'll take that data and we'll put it into Clay. Or if we use Clay, to build the data itself, because Clay also allows you to do that, we can then keep that Clay and then carry on with doing the enrichment. So what I mean by enrichment is, finding email addresses, we can do research on the prospects, we can remove bad fit companies. This is where AI comes in, and we start using AI to, do research to, find out, is this actually a good fit company for us? We can put criteria, we can score the leads. There are so many different things that we can do within Clay. But in general, if you're getting started, my recommendation would just be to use it mainly for researching and filtering prospects, as well as just basic enrichments like finding the email addresses and verifying the email addresses, right? The reason why we want to do this is because it allows you to do research on your prospects to make the messaging way more tailored. Rather than having a list of, say, 10,000 prospects, we might now have a list of 5,000 prospects, but those are really accurate prospects that we know are our ideal customer, or they are, we know they fit like software, right? For example, if we were to build a list in Apollo and we were looking for software companies and we built a list of 10,000, we might have maybe like 10-20% of the list like consulting firms, agencies, etc. And you can do a lot of stuff to remove those filters, or exclude those keywords. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get a fully accurate list. So when you put it into Clay, and I've shown this before, but when you put it into Clay, we can actually do research on those prospects to, for example, find out do they have a demo button on their website? Do they have pricing on their, on one of their pages? And if they do, then they can go into campaign A. And if they don't have pricing on their page, they can go into campaign B, for example, right? And this is just like one example, but there's so many different things that we can do. We can also easily split them up into like different regions. So if we want to set up a campaign for US, EU, we can split them up in Clay, make it really easy to do so. We can do some personalization. So we can say like who their target ICP is, who do they sell to, all sorts of different things. We can just essentially use it for basic enrichment, finding their email addresses, etc., and doing research, so that when we do have a list, we have a list of really segmented, really highly targeted prospects, which we can then use AI to filter those companies so that we're only reaching out to the best ones. This is going to help us with our deliverability. This is going to help us with better targeting. And this is going to help us with getting our actual right message in front of the right people. Now, the right time aspect is really also important as well, which I'll touch on briefly here, which is to do with signals. So signals, intent, triggers, whatever you want to call it. Doing research, I find, is a really good way of kind of combining those things. And you could do things like stacking. So you find one bit of information, let's just say they're hiring for a particular job. Then they might have the founder posting on LinkedIn, and the founder is saying like, something about they're growing their team. You can now stack point A and data point A and data point B, and now go into that conversation, that email being way more targeted, way more relevant than just sending a blanket email. For example, this is a bit more advanced, but it allows you to stack sort of different data points and different bits of research to be able to get the right message in front of the right person at the right time, which is the key, right? So this is where we use Clay. We'll do this is basically allows us to integrate a whole bunch of different tools within Clay, find emails, verify emails, etc., do research, personalize the emails if we want to, all sorts of different things. And then we take that information, we push that data now into our email sequencer, which will be instantly, for example, or you can use Smart Lead or whatever it is, right? So that's the lead list side. Again, I've walked through many videos on what this looks like, on how to build lead lists and so on and so forth. But you can see here, for example, we've got our initial data here, like all the first name, last name, company, etc. And then we're doing a whole filtration process of like, do they have this on their website? Do they not? Do they say this? Do they mention these keywords? And if so, like, I don't know, say you're targeting AI companies or companies that are looking at using AI, do they mention AI on the website? And if they do, great, let's reach out to them. And if they don't, we maybe have a different message for them. That you can't get this kind of granularity with just using tools like Apollo or SalesNav, etc. They just don't allow you to actually get this detailed on your targeting. And that's the good thing about Clay, is you can mold that data to exactly what you need to then reach out. Whereas the static lists or databases, they got the data, but you then need to like play with it a little bit, basically, especially nowadays as everyone's inbox is like super overrun. So third thing here is the messaging / offer. Now, this is, again, just as important as the rest. Every single one of these has to work in conjunction with the others to be able to get the best possible results so that you can book in more sales. So some basics here. We want to keep the email relatively short. less than 70 words, ideally. Shorter the better though, as long as you can convey your main value proposition. You want to make sure that your offer is relevant to the prospect. I've actually got a swipe file below in the description if you're interested. You can pick that up for some of the best performing email scripts, email frameworks, etc., all in the description. I've taken other people's frameworks as well as our own frameworks and just created a document that basically runs through different copy variations and so on and so forth, that you can then take those ideas or take those frameworks and examples and then use those in your own outbound campaigns. The credit, obviously, for the ones written by other people goes to those people, but I've just put it all together so you can see it, and you can get that below in the description. Another important aspect here is to speak your prospect's language. So if you email plumbers, your email will obviously look very different to if you email tech companies. So you want to know what your ideal customer profile is, which goes without saying. Like, obviously, just like any other marketing channel, you need to know who you're speaking to, and you need to how they speak, what they care about, their pains, their desires, all this kind of stuff, right? It's just basic 101. Then you need to also know how your solution helps them, and we want to be really specific about how it helps them, right? So you aren't here selling your service, you're selling a benefit, and you're sharing to them how they can benefit or what they get. Every email, every prospect they reach out to only really cares about, what do I get, right? No one cares about what you do and all this stuff. Like, so many other people do what you do. They care about what they get, right? What do you give them, right? Just like you care about what you get, right? So you want to make your emails really specifically focused on how you help them and how you can help them go from A to B or solve a very specific pain point. Again, if you're interested in finding out like examples of what this looks like, description below. So you want to focus here on the tangible outcome, right? So this could either be like the money that you can help them make, the time that you can help them save, or the money that you can help them save, right? Really, most value propositions that everyone cares about falls into one of those three. Essentially, booking more sales calls, for example, my value proposition here is going to help you make more money. But it can also potentially tie into helping you save more time, which ultimately still leads back to helping you make more money, right? Because you're going to get on more calls, close more deals. So you want to angle yours, for example, if you're doing like software development or automations, you can angle that towards how you actually save them time, right? And you want to be very specific about how do you save them time? How much time do you save them? Like all these kinds of things that you can then use in your email to position it a little better. You want to also keep your CTA permission based or soft. So no hard call to action where it's like book a 15-minute meeting with me. Like people don't want that, right? Unless you have an incredible offer and you know that it works, which most people won't because you're watching this video, it's more than likely that you just want to have a soft call to action, right? That will help you get more responses, which ultimately will help you book more meetings. So soft call to action could be like, is this something you're interested in? Do you want to learn more info? Can I send over a video? Can I send over XYZ? Blah, 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 right? Anything that isn't just getting them to say like, yes, I'm interested in some form or another. The two types of messaging that you can also play around with are direct offer. So this is where you basically tell the prospect directly how you can help them. We can help you save 10 hours a week with our AI automation system, whatever, right? You play around with that, but that's direct. You're going straight. Is there something you'd be interested in? This works. We have a client that has been running campaigns for God knows how long now, and we do a very direct, would you be interested in this? We do it on a performance basis, right? And it works. Whereas other clients, we want to have maybe more of a lead magnet approach. So this is where you offer the prospect something valuable for free. Now, valuable does not mean that it's like an ebook or a PDF or something. It has to be actually useful to the person. And you want it to be something that doesn't require the prospect to have any involvement or like time or anything. If you say like, let me audit your Google Ads account, yes, it's free and yes, it might be valuable, but a stranger who's just got your email is not going to give you access to their Google Ads account for free. Like it's going to cost them time. It's going to take them time to do it. So just have a think about what that actually looks like. This is specific to industries, but again, like I built a swipe file of 50 of our best performing messages. Can I send those over to you? Right. And then you just got like a small doc that you then share or something, or it could be a video, or it could be case study, or it could be how you learned or insights from another, company or brand that you've worked with in their space. Like it has to be specific. So again, like that you can play around with, but those are kind of generally the two angles you sort of can end up taking. Be more direct, or you can be more with a lead magnet. Try and test both different ones. And then the final thing is 2 to 3 emails in the sequence maximum After this is just diminishing returns. You might get an email reply on email 4, email 5, etc. But people generally don't want to get 5, 6, 7 emails from you. Just stop after like 2 or 3. We normally have about 2 max now in sequences, but 3 is okay. After that, just stop. You're going to get more people marking you as spam, which is going to cause issues for deliverability. So that's number 1. Right, cool. Moving into our last part here, conversions. So the most important aspect is speed to lead is the most important thing, right? You need to be sub 10 to 15 minutes, ideally less than 5. So what we do is we just have a Slack notification channel to monitor replies. And you have this across all clients. So as soon as a reply comes in, gets notified, someone can then go in, the inbox manager, wherever, or the client or us, you can go in or your appointment setter can go in and then handle the replies. Or they could just sit in the inbox all day and just manage the replies, right? But you need some kind of system in place to be able to see what is actually going on in the inbox and then be able to reply to those prospects extremely quickly. This is the biggest lever. There are so many people that just don't do this, and like you can generate all the leads in the world, but if you leave them for 24 hours or you leave them for a couple of hours, like every minute that goes by, they get colder and colder and colder, and all the work and money and effort and everything that was done up front to set up the campaign is now completely wasted. You might as well not have gotten the lead in the first place. So that is the most important aspect. The second most important aspect, which I haven't actually put here, is the quality of your response. So if it's a direct offer, this matters a little bit less, and speed to lead is still the most important thing regardless. But the second most important thing is the quality of the response. So if you've done a lead magnet, for example, and the lead magnet you've sent over is crap, like it doesn't matter how quickly you respond to the lead, it's crap lead magnet. Like if someone's reached out and said, hey, I can do a video for free for you, and then you send over the video and it's like shit, it doesn't matter how quickly you respond. If the lead magnet is crap, like no one's going to be interested in your work. It has to be good, right? It's why you have to say this. I don't know why, but people don't realize that this is true. So it has to be good, right? It sounds so obvious, but it has to be good, right? So yeah, those are the 2 most important aspects or levers that you can pull to generate and convert as many of the leads that are coming through into bookings. Speed to lead, quality of response. The next things will help with just trying to, getting like as much optimization or efficiency out of it as possible. You can set up things called subsequences. This is just automated follow-ups within your smart lead to prospects that basically don't book in. So you could have a message that says your email goes out, person responds. After the response, you then get back to them and say, hey, yeah, I'm free this day. When are you free? When do you want to do a call? And then the prospect ghosts you, right? That happens to all of us. So what you want to do then is have some kind of automated follow-up so that with those prospects, you catch as many as you can. You send them 3 to 4 emails or 3 to 4 follow-ups. And the good thing about subsequences is if they reply again, then it stops. So you won't continue sending them. So if they reply again, it'll just stop. But it's really good to just make things a lot easier and automated once you've actually got the initial response. I do agree. I do think that doing that initial response manually is better, especially if you're getting started to kind of understand what things people are saying and how to best respond before you train someone on that. But then over time, you can then set it up so that the follow-ups after that are automated. That's what I would recommend, and that can help you increase your booking rate a little bit as well. The other thing here is warm calling as well. So calling the leads. So once the lead comes in, they've got a response or anything, warm calling is going to help massively with improving the conversion rate. So if you have a lead come in, you see in the bottom, they've got the signature and they've got a mobile in there, just like give them a call. Let's just say, hey, got your email. Sorry, I sent you an email. I got your response about XYZ. You have a couple minutes to chat, right? Whatever that looks like. It's going to help massively, right? And you can do that initially from your mobile, but over time, as you get more integrated systems and everything, you can start doing that from like dialers and so on and so forth, right? The next thing that's also really important is don't just send your calendar link. So don't just be like, hey, thanks for getting back to me. Let's book in a call. Here's my calendar. It's lazy, right? What you want to do is you want to offer potential times. So you could say, hey, I'm free. Let's do a call. I'm free tomorrow at, does X or Y time work for you? Like I'm free tomorrow at 10 or Wednesday at 12. Do either of those work? If not, and if it's easier, here's my calendar link. So you send them both options. You send them the time options, like specifically, and you also send them a calendar option. Some people might prefer to book in a calendar. They have the option. Some people might say 10 a.m. tomorrow works, and you go, great. And then you book them into your calendar manually. You just go open up the calendar, you put their name in, you put their email address in, whatever info in, and then you confirm them in that time slot. And then you send them an email afterwards saying, hey, just sent over an invite, let me know if received. You want to do that manual step there. It's just going to help with, again, like converting, getting more of those people to actually show up to the call. Bonus tip here, if you can send videos in any form prior to the call through email, that's also going to help with the show up rate as well, because people can see like this is a real person. If you send them links to your content or any proof that you have, or like any VSL, anything whatsoever, so they can see this is a real person, the likelihood of them showing up is going to be way more. And it also can filter out the people that maybe aren't really a good fit and prime them and sort of position the call for a sales call, so they come into it knowing a bit more about what you guys do. And this also ties in with the pre-call automated reminders. So you want to just set something up on Calendly, so you have a couple of automated reminders. And then I would also manually email the person as well prior to the meeting, say, hey, looking forward to chatting with you at X time, right? Or once you've sent the invite, hey, I've sent you the invite, let me know if received. Like things like that. Just little details like that can help with A, show up rate, and B, just the actual prospect, like turning up to the call and being more prepared for the call. Final 2 points. You can push leads directly from the responses into your CRM to nurture them if they don't book in straight away, so that you can capture as much of the lot, because a lot of times you lose revenue. Like they might not necessarily be ready right now, but they could be ready in 3 months. So you want to have them into separate nurture sequences and separate nurture campaigns in the future within like, HubSpot and so on and so forth, but you want to have them in a separate segment or pile so that you know to reach out to them again in the future. Again, like just so basic thing, but you'd be surprised at how much revenue people leave behind just by not doing that one thing. Some people just is not the right time, but they're interested and they are a buyer. You could then reach out to them again in 3 months' time and say, hey, XYZ, here's my offer, kind of thing. That's why I would recommend pushing into your CRM for the interested leads. And then one final thing is, this is a bit more, again, advanced, but if you have a lot of calls and you need to do research prior to the calls, you can actually connect your interested response with Clay, where you can then enrich, do some research on the prospect. You can find out information about their initiatives, etc., and then create like a little document or a word blur, a summary basically on talking points for the call, so you come into the call more prepared. And it's just an automated way to save like your rep or yourself, like sales rep or yourself, from going onto the call without knowing information about the prospect. So yeah, I hope this has been pretty comprehensive. It's like a really in detail breakdown step by step of just the core fundamentals of cold email and how you can actually book in way more sales calls. So if you found this interesting, feel free to like, comment, all that stuff. If you're interested in the swipe file, you can download that below in the description. And if you're interested in working with us on a performance basis, we'll book these sales calls and meetings into your calendar on a performance basis. And feel free to book in a call below with either myself or my co-founder. And I will see you in the next one. Cheers.